Hello, and welcome to Cabaret Beat. I'm your host, Wydetta Carter, and as a singer-actress myself, I am excited to bring to you this new virtual series from the Chicago Cabaret Professionals. Until we can all come to the cabaret again at all our favorite spots, we are coming to you with some of your favorite singers, new voices you may not have heard before, their stories, and of course, great music. Today's guests are Cynthia Clarey and Cindy Firing. There's never been a more important time for us to engage, connect, and share our experiences through music and conversation. So, let's join in the chat, share with your friends, and let's begin the Cabaret Beat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Not at where you are, not at what you'll be. Move on. Move on. Stop worrying if your vision is new. Let others make that decision. They usually do. Just keep moving on. What you want, not at where you are, what you'll be. Feel the passion in your heart, and it's bleeding in your life, and the care and the feeling. Anything you do, let it come from you, then it will be new. Give us more to see.
Welcome, Cindy Firing. How are you?
Great, thank you.
Oh, it's very good to see you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while, thanks to the big C.
Yes, but I am so happy that we're coming back. We are coming back. Woohoo! Yes. Yes. So, this is about you, young lady. So, let's begin your journey. How far back do you want to go? Did you start singing before high school, during high school, college? Where should we start?
Well, I did start singing when I was mimicking my mother, who was a music teacher who liked to study opera. So I would, I'm sure she loved it, just kind of mimic her in the background as she was singing Cherubino's aria from Marriage of Figaro or something. And I was blessed because, she had music on in the house all the time. And my father, too, he was a saxophone player before I was born. I never heard him play a note, but he loved the music. So, yeah, there was that. And, I did all the high school musical things and really wanted to be in the theater. So I went to school and I decided to study theater. I got my degree from Penn State University. I was in concert choirs and all productions from musicals to Shakespeare. Had a great time with all of that, and had New York. It's behind me still. New York in my path. So I moved there and did some off Broadway things, and
Can you name a couple of things that you did?
I did Vagabond Stars was at the Queen's Theater in the Park. That was probably my first show that I did there. And then I did a few music reviews. I got callbacks for some things that were, would have been dreams come true, but they never came to fruition. And then I became disenchanted because I just felt like it was so subjective. Imagine that. So I decided to dip my toes in the world of opera for a while, thinking that somehow that would be easier.
That's a whole nother world. It really is. But keep going. Tell me your journey through opera.
Yeah. So I did that for about a decade, and it was kind of like a slow dipping of toes because, of course, way back when my mother was singing it, I didn't have nothing to do with it. Just wanted nothing to do with it other than to torture her. But I had a voice teacher that kept encouraging me to learn arias, and then I met my husband, who was already entrenched in the opera world, and so I had this just library of CDs to learn from. And we started an opera company way up north in Manhattan. There was a neighborhood called Inwood, and it still is. And we sang for our neighbors, and they gave money, and we didn't know what to do with it. So we gave it to the church, and the church said, anytime you want to come back. So we sort of organized and decided to have an opera company. We ran it for 4 years, and it was an exciting time of life. It was one of those moments where you felt like you were doing the right thing at the right time because the universe kept giving you signals. When you thought that something wasn't going to be able to happen, then all of a sudden a miracle would happen and everything would move forward. So it was
so you and your husband sang together, did the operas together?
A lot, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell what a couple of shows that you've done together in your opera company?
Yes. We sang Rigoletto together. He playing Rigoletto and I playing Gilda, his daughter. Play his daughter a lot in these operas. Thrilled him to no pieces, to no end. Then we did Traviata a few times. I got to play Violetta and he plays Germont, my lover's dad. And we did Fledermaus, we did Werther, we did so much with that company. Bohème a lot of times. This time we actually got to kiss as a couple on the stage when we did Bohème because I would be Musetta and he would be Marcello. And yeah, it was the most real kiss ever for Marcello and Musetta. That was a lot of fun. And we sang a lot with, the borough orchestras, Staten Island Symphony. There's a great community opera company out in Brooklyn called Regina Opera, up in West, the New Rochelle Opera. So we gigged around there.
Okay.
I did get to go to Peru a couple times. That was exciting. So yeah, sang a lot of opera for a while. We do concerts and things too together. And then I moved to Chicago, and I eventually hung up my opera hat, but not before then creating a company here that I used to call Hush Opera. It's nothing to keep quiet about.
Hush. I was going to say, what's quiet about opera? But so I love the name.
Well, it came to be because it was on the corner. We performed all the time at a restaurant that was on the corner of Rush and Hubbard. So it was an amalgamation of that. And then the tagline was...
Okay, that's clever. Okay, you get 10 points for that. That's clever.
Thank you.
I love it.
And the tagline was, it's nothing to keep quiet about. And I guess that was kind of my first dipping of toes into the cabaret world because it was a very intimate setting. And while opera is usually a very loud art form because you're using your whole voice without amplification, it is without amplification. So there is a certain personal connection when you just hear the raw human voice. So I did a lot of crossover things with that company. I think the audience mostly wanted to hear Broadway classics or the standards of Porter Gershwin. So I wrote a lot of shows like that. And then I did a fair share of trying to, I did a show called Twice Told Tales where we'd sing Cinderella from Into the Woods and then the aria from Cenerentola, trying to get them to see, the story through there. So that was a fun time of my life. Well, I eventually kind of got burnt out and I stepped away for a while from music. And then the more people I met that were connected to the Chicago cabaret community kept saying, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do this. So I decided to dip my toes in that world. I went down to, there's a wonderful, what I call a cabaret camp in St. Louis. And I did that for 2 years and got comfortable with the microphone and learning to be more myself and less the characters that I was playing on stage. And I did my first solo show here at Davenport's in 2019. That was a thrill, and that went through several versions before it finally got to the final one there. And now I'm working on a few new shows. So that's my story.
That is and it's a great story. But I want to back up a little bit because you said your musical route has taken you from Poughkeepsie, I'm thinking Poughkeepsie, New York,
Correct,
to Peru. Yeah. So the P to the P. Poughkeepsie, was that the opera world still, or was that more along the musical theater world? Because you did say Peru was opera, so.
Yes, they were both opera. There was an old opera house in Poughkeepsie called the Bardavon Opera House, and it was actually my very first role with orchestra. So that's always the first one, Poughkeepsie. It was the beginning. And then eventually I went to Peru twice. They were singer connections I made, and they were trying to build an opera program in Peru. And I was fortunate enough to know them and to have been asked to go down and do a few concerts there. So,
so leading into this, then you've written and produced a lot of shows because you just mentioned the different companies that you've had. So, can you tell us a couple of your favorites? What 2 or 3 that just stand out to you? I mean,
yeah, I really am proud of the show I put together on the life of Cole Porter. Every show I wrote for Hush Opera, I had hired an actor to lead the audience through so that people would also go away learning something about the music or about the life of the composer. And so it was told through the eyes of Cole Porter looking through a scrapbook. And it was very effective. And so I was very proud of that one. And I suppose the other one was the Gershwin show. I really loved a lot. That was told through the perspective of Ira. And you learned a lot about the relationship between the two brothers and the writing partners and the regrets that Ira had towards the end of George's life, and just takes you through the musical landscape from the beginning of their career to the end as well. So I felt that those were 2 of the most successful shows that I did with Hush Opera.
Great. So where does your connection come into the Chicago Cabaret Professionals? What brought you there?
I think it was Mark and Ann Brunell. I met them fairly early on after moving here from New York. And I believe I had taken an acting class, and I said, who can I coach with? And they said, Mark Brunell. So I went and met with them, and they talked about it somewhat, but I wasn't sure I was ready to give up opera, so I didn't bite right away. And then I met the lovely Elizabeth Doyle, who played a few of our Hush Opera gigs for us, and she talked about it, and so I thought about it a little bit more, and when I finally told Elizabeth that I was joining, she invited me to do the Strut Your Stuff, which is a wonderful way for new members to be heard amongst the community. You get to do like a mini set for anybody out there that doesn't know about Strut Your Stuff. And it just gets you familiar with Davenport and the stage, and getting used to the microphone if you're not coming from that arena. And from there, I knew that I wanted to learn more about the art form. And that's when I started looking at St. Louis, which I mentioned. And I went there, and before the second year, you had to have done a solo show to join what they deemed their professional track. So I made it happen. I just jumped in the first.
So now we mentioned Davenport's. There's a story to be told. Let's hear it.
So embarrassing. Yes. So it's opening night of my very first solo show there, which was called Brass Ring. And I looked high and low for a dress that would suit the occasion. And I came up with what I call my mirror ball dress, because it was very glitzy and reflected a lot of light. And it had a plunging neckline, and I'm sort of dressed demurely today, but I'm a buxom gal. And so I wanted to make sure that I was not going to flash anybody. And I had this double-sided tape, but I wasn't trusting it. And I thought, I need a safety pin. I just need to, put something in here. And I couldn't find one. I didn't bring one. I'm looking in the dressing room thinking, surely a dressing room at Davenport's, there will be a pin, something here, high and low. Now my husband's looking, my cousin came down, he's looking. The stage manager came down and said, okay, we're ready to go on. And I said, I can't, my dress, I can't go on. I said, can you ask the audience if anybody has a safety pin? So he goes up, he asks the audience. Nobody has a safety pin. So they come back down. Finally, the videographer, bless her soul, went across the street. There is a drugstore across the street. I forget if it's CVS or Walgreens, but it's one or the other. And she buys a bunch of safety pins. I pin myself in, and I think, oh my God, I think it was at least 10 minutes late, maybe more. And when I finally made my entrance, the audience was so kind, and they just applauded more than I ever would have imagined. And I was so grateful. And, one of the reasons I was adamant about not going on without the safety pin is because one of the numbers I was doing, I encouraged the audience to look at these, and I kind of show off my endowment on the front, and I, didn't want anything to go wrong. Well, when that part in the show came, and I said, look at these, and I was just so confident because I had my damn safety pin, and it was uproarious laughter, the appreciation for them all being in on what I had been going through. So, I learned very important lessons that day. One, that if you let your audience in and be real with them, they will forgive a lot and maybe even enjoy knowing what's really going on. And of course, don't forget a safety pin. Always have
And there
one.
you have it. Always have one somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere for just that reason. Yeah, like I've said many times, the audience love to know what's going on, and to find out that I was there when we had to wait because she had to pin herself in. No. Could you imagine if you got to that point and said, look at these, and they're like, we are.
Yes.
We are. Oh my God.
I didn't know this was burlesque. Right?
See? So when are you going to be doing your new show? And could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, I actually have 3 things coming up. The first is going to be Songs in the Key of Chicago, which is a show that I believe has run before, but it's getting a reboot, and I was asked to be a part of it. Kevin Wood, who is another cabaret professional, is putting the show together, and it's going to be happening August 27th at 7 o'clock at the Charlie Chaplin Auditorium in Uptown. So I'm excited about that. There's a lot of wonderful performers, and it's going to highlight all the music of Chicago composers, lyricists, performers. So that's a newly added thing to the schedule, which I'm really excited for. Then the other two shows I'm working on, I have a duet show that I'm working on with a lovely performer who I think in a couple of weeks you're going to interview. Her name is Josephine Sanchez. And yes, you do know her. She's special. And we are joining forces to work on a show, which we began working on pre-COVID. And at that time had come up with the title Carry On, because we were traveling back and forth because she lives in New York, as does the music director, and I live here. And so there's lots of back and forth with our carry-on luggage and, you know, all the traveling and things. Well, over the course of the pandemic, we got to know each other even better. And of course, the title Carry On took on a whole other layer of meaning. So we are putting the bows on that show and are looking forward to doing sometime this fall. We haven't chosen the dates yet.
Okay.
But maybe by the time you interview Josephine, we'll have them. Who knows?
Okay, I look forward to that.
Yeah. And then I also have been working on a labor of love. I'm doing a tribute show to Barbara Cook. She's a very special lady for anyone out there that isn't aware of who she is. She was one of the most sought after ingenues of her time in the 50s and 60s when she was performing on Broadway. She was the original Marion the Librarian in The Music Man, the original Cunegonde in Candide. And in She Loves Me, she did countless revivals of Rodgers and Hammerstein shows. And then later in her life, she came around to the cabaret scene when she met her music director, Wally Harper. And so I'm paying tribute to that lovely lady. And that is also going to be in the fall. But again, the dates are not chosen. I think by late July, we'll have that established.
Wow. So you have a full plate coming back. You're just, you know, doors are opening and you're like, here I am.
Yes.
I love that.
Trying. Yes.
Yes. Well, that's great. So, okay. So again, time flies by so quickly when I'm interviewing wonderful, wonderful artists. And so I think what you're going to do for us before you leave is related to the Barbara Cook show. So what is it going to be?
Yeah, well, I thought I would give you a little taste of the show with a parody that was written for me. Wally Harper, Barbara Cook's music director, had written a song for her called The Ingenue, which talked a lot about her experience in her early Broadway days. And my music director, John Cook, put together a parody of that, which we lovingly refer to as the ingenue, because much as I would have loved to have been the spitting image of Barbara Cook, that perky, blonde, blue-eyed girl, I am definitely not that. And I had my own path to travel. So this is the song I would like to sing for you.
Great.
Let's see. When I was small, I caught the bug of music theater mania. The chance to sing was like a drug for this girl from Pennsylvania. And from that time my course was set, my legacy a certain bet. And while I dreamed of screaming fans, life sometimes has other plans. Auditioning's the perfect way to demonstrate ability. From Oklahoma to Hairspray, I had versatility, 'cause I can sing most anything from Roxy to Maria. And so you'd think she's on her way, but this is what they had to say. Your body looks the part of Roxy Hart, but not that baby face. Come back when it looks as though you've been at least to third base. And as for West Side Story, let me say you sing superbly, but it stands out like a beacon that you don't look Puerto Rican. And so I chartered a new course, stop beating that same dead horse. The opera stage I would engage to play all parts at any age, 'cause I can sing most anything from Joe March to Violetta. I waited for the phone to ring just to hear the same old thing. Some girls are like a Georgia peach, you're more like a persimmon. You're much too tall to be a featured star in Little Women. Misfiring, you're inspiring, so forgive our being presumptive, but your look is just much too robust to ever play consumptive. So, this is how my life has turned, but I'm just fine, 'cause I have learned there is a special place for me to sing in perpetuity. It's cabaret and I'm okay, for this much I can surely say. A saving grace out of the blue. At least I'm not indulging you.
I love it. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you.
Thank you. This is so wonderful that you do this for the community.
Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying Chicago Beat as much as I am. I'm here to make a musical Moscow Mule. I already prepared some of the stuff. We've got our vodka, we've got our ginger beer, we've got our lime juice. We're going to start with 4 pieces of cucumber, a couple of mints. We're going to add our 1.5 ounces of vodka. And now we're going to sing a little bit while we muddle. The summer wind is blowing in across the sea. I'm making a musical Moscow Mule for you and me. And now it's muddled good and right, so I'll have to strain it in the glass. Hold on right now. Okay, it's all muddled, looking good. Strain this into our glass filled with ice. That looks beautiful. All right, we're going to add our ginger beer. I use the diet ginger beer because normal ginger beer has tons of sugar. Our lime juice. That looks great. Gentle stir. A little orange slice, a little lime slice. We're going to put in a twig of mint. And there you go. The perfect summer drink to enjoy while you're watching the rest of the series of Chicago Beat.
Colored folks work on the Mississippi. Colored folks work while the white folks play. Pulling those boats from the dawn till sunset. Getting no rest till the judgment day. Don't look up and don't look down. You don't ask to make the white boss frown. Bend your knees and bow your head and pull that rope until you're dead. Let me go away from the Mississippi. Let me go away from the white man boss. Show me that stream called the River Jordan. That's the old stream that I long to cross. Old man river, that old man river, he must know something, but he don't say nothing. He just keeps rolling. He keeps on rolling along. He don't plant cotton, and them that plants 'em is soon forgotten. But old man River, he just keeps rolling along. You and me, we sweat and strain, body all aching and racked with pain. Tote that barge and lift that bale, you get a little drunk and your land's in jail. Well, I get weary and sick of trying. I'm tired of living, and I'm scared of dying. But old man River, he just keeps rolling
Cynthia Clarey, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Oh, it is such a pleasure to be speaking with you today. Oh, your background in this industry is amazing. Let me just say, when we Google you, there's a lot going on. So with that being said, let's go back as far as, well, when did you start singing? What age did you start singing? Let's go back there.
Okay, that's a long time ago. I was always singing, I think, from the time I could talk. And my first actual performance was at my kindergarten graduation. So I must have been about 6. And my kindergarten teacher taught me this little song, which, of course, it was just a song. So okay. And it was starting with the ABC of it, right down to the XYZ of it. Yes.
Wait, at 6 years old, your teacher taught
At
you
6
that?
years old, that's what she taught me. Help me,
Okay.
help me, Mr. Rip, teach me tonight. I mean, I don't think she knew what it was about. I certainly didn't. And it was not, and I never sang it again. So it was, I must have been in my 20s or something before and I went, oh my goodness. Not exactly a kindergarten kind of song.
But see, there must have been something in your voice. She just wanted to hear some little soulfulness in the
It sounded like
6-year-old's voice, I guess.
teacher, student, teacher, student. Anyway, so she also had the junior choir at church. So I sang in the choir at church. So that was from about 6, let's say. I was singing.
Okay.
And then I just kept singing in choirs and in school and church.
And so when did you realize that you were going to start leaning toward opera?
Oh gosh. Well, I think I was in high school and I heard the Leontine Price's voice for the first time.
Yeah.
That blue recording of hers. And she was singing Quel bel sogno from La Rondine. I had never heard anything like that. I didn't know people could do that with their voices, because whenever anything came on TV that was classical and people was, we would laugh and say, oh, but they're just screaming and they're not even speaking English, So,
Right.
but I heard this and I was so tears was just streaming down my face. And I thought, if I could do that with my voice, that would be amazing. So I decided I knew I wanted to be a singer. I would really want to be a Supreme, or, one of the girl groups is what I really wanted.
Right.
But I thought, okay, if I really train my voice, then I can do kind of whatever I want to. So I went to school as a voice major. I went to Howard University as a voice major. And in the summers, I worked for Six Flags singing.
Oh.
Yeah. And of course, they did
That
a
was
lot.
a contrast.
Yes, and they did a lot of musical stuff. And so then I was really in love with musicals, and I wanted to do musical theater. So when I went to graduate school in New York at Juilliard, I went because I thought I could somehow get into musicals. And before I had a chance to do that, because at that time there was not a whole lot going on Broadway that people of color were involved in.
Very true. Very true.
There was Pearly. What else was on at the time? Oh, I know, Lost in the Stars. But anyway, I got sidetracked into opera because I used to sing for the choral conducting class. And they would pay us to come in and, be the choir for them. And the guy who was in charge of the choir for the opera center asked me if I were interested in being in the opera. And I said, I guess so, because I assumed he meant the chorus. So he took me to speak to the conductor, and he said, so they were going to do the Magic Flute. Do you know any of the arias? And I said, no. And he said, would you learn Pamina's aria for me? This was like Thursday, and sing it for me on Monday. I said, sure. So I did. And nobody told me that it was going to be hard or anything. So I just learned what was on the page and went in and sang it. He said, okay, so go to the Opera Center and tell them that you're going to do the second cast of Magic Flute. I thought, okay. Okay. So that was it. That was the beginning of it. And I have to say, I thought, well, my idea of singing and what I was thinking I wanted to do, dancing and singing and acting and all that. I was in a rehearsal, and we had just done our bit, the second cast. And so I went and sat out in the audience to watch the first cast. And my good friend, Joy Simpson, I don't even know if you know that name, Joy came in and sat down beside me. And we were watching, and I said, ooh, this is really boring. I said, do I look like that? And she said, mm-hmm. I said, oh, no, can't have that. Can't have that. So then my thing was, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this interesting for people who might think they don't like it. And so that was it. And I kept getting work at it. So I thought, I guess this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Wow. So you literally just, when they say fall into it, you literally just fell into it.
I fell into it, literally.
It wasn't your goal at all.
It was not my goal, no.
Well, before your career continued on in opera, did you have an opportunity to do some musical theater? Or
not
did,
really,
once
no.
I
was pretty busy with opera. There was one point where they were doing Timbuktu on Broadway, and what's her name? Was thinking about leaving the show, and I went and sang for Jeffrey Holder, and he really liked me, but then she decided she wasn't leaving; she was going to stay. So that was as close as I got, other than when we did the Peter Brook Carmen in the Vivian Beaumont Theater, which was on Broadway. That was the closest I got. Yeah.
Okay, and when did you do that? When did you do that?
That was, let's see, my son was 2, I think. So that had to have been like 1984, 84.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, how did your career progress? Where did you, I know you've toured quite a bit. So it's on that journey.
I left Juilliard. When I finished at Juilliard, I went to Tri-Cities Opera in Binghamton, New York. At that time, it was one of the few training companies for young singers. They didn't have all of the artists, what is that thing? Sorry. They didn't have all of the young artist programs then. They had Marilla out in San Francisco and Tri-Cities. And so I went there and I got to sing a lot of roles. And at this time, I was a soprano. I sang a lot of soprano roles. And then they were going to do Carmen, and they needed a mezzo because their Carmen had canceled. And I said, I want to do it. And they said, well, yeah, but you're a soprano. And I said, well, sopranos have done it. So, look at the arias, sing it for us. We'll tell you whether or not you can do it. And I did. And they said, oh, yeah, I think you can do this. So I started doing that. And then by this time, I had already been singing quite a lot in other places as well. I did, back in the day, I went to Paris with Alvin Ailey to do Carmina Burana. I sang that with them. And of course, we did the Revelations as well, which I just loved. So we did that. I did that for like 7 weeks. And then I came back to the States and I just started getting work. I had an agent and things just started coming in. People started asking. It's amazing how much of it is word of mouth. I heard so-and-so, maybe you should hear her or think about her for this or something like that. So, yeah. And that was, let's say, late 70s was when I really started my career.
Okay.
Mid to late 70s, yeah.
And it's true that a lot of people don't realize that in opera, they hire you probably a year out from when you actually will be performing.
3 years out.
Because when you show up to rehearsals, you have to know everything. They're not there to teach it to you. No. You come prepared, whatever language you're singing in, whatever, you come prepared, and it's all about placement on stage, directing, maybe some choreography, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
you have to be ready. It's
right. So how many languages?
And you have to have sung the role into your voice, because it's not like just something you can pick up and sing. You really have to work it out. Yeah.
And so how many languages can you sing in?
I have sung in French, Italian, Czech, German, Russian. I think that's it. And English, of course.
Right. Wow. Or were you surprised with yourself that you could sing in these different languages?
Not really.
Because things are approached slightly differently,
Yeah. No, I felt it was something I could do. And, we don't always know exactly what we're saying, each word. If you go in and you do that at first, but as you're singing it, you don't. But you learn a lot just by listening and having a coach tell you this is what it should sound like. If it's going to sound like French, it has to sound like this, So you just learn it. Yeah.
So then when did you leave the opera world and transition into singing cabaret? What made that change for you?
Oh, that's a big story. Okay, so now we're talking, I lived in Cologne for 7 years, and then we lived in England for 3 years. And I was married to another opera singer at the time, and it got to the point where we were splitting up. And this also happened to be when I was going through menopause. And I couldn't figure out what was going on with my voice. It just was weird. I couldn't really control it anymore. I wasn't sure what was going to come out of my mouth. So that and going through a divorce and all that, I was a mess. Came back to the States. We split. I came back to the States, and I couldn't function vocally. I just couldn't. So I thought that was it. I had been singing for like over 35 years, and I thought, well, that's it for that, you know. I'll have to find something else to do. Um, didn't want to teach at the time because I couldn't sing, and I thought, well, I have to be able to sing a little bit just to show the kids what I want from them. So I knocked around for 3-4 years, just not knowing, you know, what. Then I started singing in church again, a little bit. I said, well, I'll sing in the chorus. I'll sing tenor. That way, my voice won't stick out, and you know. And I had all those notes, so it was, oh, what the hell. Then I started singing little solos again in church. I thought, oh, okay. So then I got the opportunity to come to Chicago to teach. One of my colleagues, who became my colleague, Jonita Lattimore, was leaving for sabbatical to go sing at Lyric for that semester. And they needed somebody to cover her students. So I had several friends on that roster already. And I thought, well, I'll go and see if this is something I can do. And I did. And I actually liked it. And they liked me. And they said, well, if you really like it, we'd like to have you come and stay. And I said, okay. So I did. And I've been there now. This is my 14th year at Roosevelt. Wow. Yeah. So I had a housemate who allowed me to stay when I no longer had students. I had to give Jonita back her students. So then I had like 3 students. I can't stay here for 3 students. We're just adjunct. So you get paid per student per hour. I thought, well, 3 students is not going to pay my rent. So my friend, Robert Sims, whom I had met at Tri-Cities Opera, he went to Oberlin, and then he came to Binghamton to get his master's at Binghamton University, and then he came back to Northwestern for his PhD. Anyway, he said, why don't you come stay with me until, you know, you get back on your feet or whatever. And I said, okay. So I did. And while I was with him, he took me to his voice teacher, was David Edelfeld. And he said, why don't you study with David while you're here? Because I said, well, you know, my voice is, he said, well, yeah, we'll just see what's what. And so I went to work with David, and he said, well, there's nothing wrong with your voice. It's just rusty because you haven't been using it or whatever. So I worked with him for a while, and I thought, it's not, you know, just isn't going to happen. It's not going to be what it was. And I was working with Becky Menzie, and Becky said, well, you know, maybe you can't do what you used to do. She said, but you can still sing. You can sing other stuff. And I had always wanted to sing all the stuff I'm singing now, but I just felt was so far away from it. So Robert said, why don't you go back? I said, but my voice is like 2 octaves lower than it used to be. And he said, go back to David and have him train you as a baritone.
Oh.
And I said, really? He said, yeah. And so that's what I did. And our voices, David's and my voice, kind of sit in the same place. So It's been really, really a lot of fun trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. And I love it. I love it. It really is. I just felt like finally I'm where I need to be.
Well, I mean, the outcome is beautiful. The richness and the tones that you bring to a song, it's just magical.
Thank you. I always had those notes, but I had no reason to use them. Just didn't need them.
And that's with a lot of singers. We have a lot of notes we never touch. Absolutely. We sing around everything. We jump over notes and everything, but we don't really use our full canon of notes that we have. So I'm going to tell you, we have spoken quite a long time, and I wish we could keep going on and on and on, because it's so much. I love the fact that you come from the world of opera and have transitioned into sharing your voice in the cabaret world. And I think everyone who hears you, the minute you start to sing, just goes, oh my gosh, thank you. So with that being said, you do have to sing again before you leave us. So what will you be singing?
I'm going to be singing a little mashup of I've Got a Crush on You and It's Wonderful. I've got a crush on you, sweetie pie, all the day and night time. Hear me sigh, I never had the least notion that I could fall with so much emotion. Could you care for a cunning cottage we could share? The world would pardon my mush, 'cause I have got a crush, my baby, on you. Life has just begun. Jack has found his Jill. Don't know what you've done, but I'm all a thrill. How can words express your divine appeal? You can never guess all the love I feel. From now on, baby, I insist. For me, no other man exists. It's wonderful, it's marvelous. You should care for me. Soulful, nice, it's paradise. It's what I love to see. You've made my life so glamorous. You can't blame me for feeling amorous. Oh, it's wonderful, it's marvelous that you should care for. I know you're there for, that you should care for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Cynthia, Clarey, thank you so much for joining me today. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in to Cabaret Beat. Please visit our website at chicagocabaret.org to learn more about us, view our monthly calendar where you can see when and where our guests and other members are performing, and also the different ways you can join and or support Cabaret here in Chicago. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.